I'm just giving in. Okay, you want us?
Good, Lisa.
Okay, it is 7:32. Let's call the Planning Commission meeting May 8th, 2025 to order. Ruth, if you would do roll call, please.
Elisa Rudolph.
Here.
Mark Porter.
Here.
Lois Marino.
Here.
William Coons.
Here.
Greg Brown.
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right, the first item is to approve the minutes from the Planning Commission when we last met on February 6th. Before we do a vote, are there any additions, changes?
No, I move to approve.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, Ruth?
Elisa Rudolph.
Yes.
Mark Porter.
Yes.
Lois Marino.
Yes.
William Coons.
I'll abstain.
Greg Brown.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. First thing I was going to say, excuse me, I am 2 weeks into recovering from a bad laryngitis bout. So if you have trouble hearing me, let me know. Before we get started, there's two things I would like to address. One for the specific meeting and one just to set the tone going forward, because as many of you may not or may know, I was newly elected as chair of the Planning Commission earlier this year. So first thing I'd like to do as far as this meeting goes, and I believe I have to make a motion that we vote on, I'd like to flip the order of the agenda. Do we have everyone here from Country Estates Homeowners? Okay, great.
Yes.
I'd like to have the PC case 2505 Country Estates Homeowners go first, and then PC case 2504, Mr. Dustin Kaplan and Ortho Sports will proceed, if that's okay. 'Cause time commitments, I'd like to get you guys on your way. You don't have to stay through everything, because I think our first, second item might take a little bit longer.
Ms. Chairman, you do not need a motion for that.
I don't need to, thank you. Okay, so we don't need to do that. The second thing I'd like to do is, I'm a very orderly, organized person, so I'm going to bring that into the structure of the Planning Commission meetings. What I would like to do is, traditionally, Planning Commission meetings themselves are meant just to have the applicants that are presenting speak. When we have public hearings, that's when the public can come and make presentations. So technically, that's the order it should be. However, in the past, we have always allowed members of the public to speak, and I'm going to continue to honor that. However, I'd like to have some order, and the mayor graciously gave this to me. I'm taking a page out of the village council structure. When they have people speak, the public can speak. I'm going to read this section 2202 G2 from the Code of Ordinance from the Village of South Russell. Any person or his authorized representative who wishes to address the Planning Commission should notify, well, you're here. We don't use it. The most important thing is we're going to give you 5 minutes to speak. We have a clock, we're going to watch it. You'll get a 2-minute warning, a 1-minute warning. We're just doing that so that we can keep things orderly. The way the meeting will continue is first we will allow the applicant to speak. You have as much time as you need within reason, but you can present. Then the Planning Commission will ask the applicant the questions pertaining to that. And then once we've asked our questions, anyone from the public that has a comment, that's when your 5 minutes would go. We'll ask questions. Of course, we'll be asking each other if you speak. So I'd like to do that. Do I have any questions about that order or concerns?
No, it's fine.
Okay. All right, so since we don't have to vote on that, beginning with agenda item number 2, PC case number 2505, Mr. Jerry Pennick, applicant on behalf of Country Estates Homeowners Association, HOA, is seeking approval for construction of a new HOA community pavilion, which is 40 feet long, 20 feet wide and 12 feet high on the HOA unplotted common property at 128 Countryside. Mr. Pennick.
It is me.
Okay, please tell us what you have.
Jerry Pennick, 117 Countryside Drive, my home address, president of the Country Estates Homeowners Association. This is George Vanderbilt, I almost said Vanderbeek, I'm sorry. George Vanderbilt is a longtime resident as well, who's been heading up a project. Just a quick background, as I understand it, back in the late 70s, when Country Estates was established, it had a small pavilion, approximately 20 by 20, on a different portion, there are two plats of land totaling about 18 acres. And on the other plat was a pavilion opposite side of the pond. It had fallen into disrepair, the pond had sludged out, tennis courts and things like that have all been removed over the years. The neighborhood has saved up money to have the pond dredged out, which was done last year. This year we want to build a new pavilion. So that's what we're here for. I understand from Mr. Osevar that had we just picked the same spot, we could have done a remodel on the existing and we probably wouldn't have to meet with you as a planning or zoning issue. But in any event, it made more sense for us to move the location of the pavilion to the west side of the pond, more sunlight, more room for us to make additions in the future. So that's what we're here for. Just in general, it's a 20 by 40 structure. It's a couple hundred feet from the closest neighbor, and that includes roughly even the folks over in Russell Township, which we dearly love, but not represented here tonight, right? Okay. That's really all I've got to say unless I'm missing something that is important.
Thank you.
Okay.
So you live at 128 Countryside.
I live at 117.
Okay.
128 is the neighborhood address closest to this.
I drove down there.
Yeah.
And, I live in Lake Louise.
Oh, okay.
Let me tell you, you're putting us to shame with this. This is really, I saw the things, it's lovely.
Yeah.
Now,
Great.
it really is. Now, has it been through architectural review or is that next?
That's next.
That's next, okay. And does it meet the standards in the building size? There's no
Building
variances
size.
that you need, okay. My only question is just to make sure, I know it's that far back, but during construction, the way you have that entrance, it's between 128 and 126. Are those residents copacetic with everyone going back and forth through
Absolutely.
construction and all?
Much happier about this than bulldozers and big heavy equipment digging out of one.
Right, oh, definitely, which they probably already went through, okay. That was my question. Any other?
I just have a question. What's the primary use going to be for the pavilion?
We have quite a few social functions in the neighborhood. Right now, we pull up lawn chairs at one of the two cul-de-sacs typically, or one of the intersections.
Mhm.
And it's just a gathering place. We'll use it for family events and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. No commercial use.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Greg's got a question.
Will there be live music or music? And are there
There's-
hours?
There's no plans, of course, in the village. There are rules and regulations having to do with noise and time of day and things like that. If there is anything having to do with amplified music from a small speaker system or something like that, it's gonna be a neighbor that's doing it with other neighbors invited, so.
And will the dredging of the pond,
It's already been done last year.
that was done last year? Okay. And is there any other water retention or drainage issue that has to be addressed besides that?
No, in fact, what we did just to update you, last year, we had a contractor come in, dig the pond out from about 18 to 24 inches down to its original depth, which was 6 to 8 feet. So a clearing was made on the back edge of the pond. In fact, if you look, you can see the pond would be the bottom right-hand corner there of the portion you can see right now. So the pond is to the right there.
And I'm moving this the right way.
Yeah, you're perfect. In fact, where it says lawn up there in the corner, we had Van Kuren come out, clear out acreage after getting our owl survey and all the good stuff we had to do. But that was a spot for sludge. The excavator came in, dug it out, filled that in, and then covered it back over with topsoil, and then that's a planted area at this point. So that's where the spoils from the pond went. But that was all completed last year. Everything is overseeded and complete.
Okay.
Yes.
I noticed you had a chimney, like a fireplace. Is that correct?
No, that's we do not have a fireplace, so that Architectural rendering is incorrect.
There is another,
Oh, yeah, I see it, it's right there.
there is another,
Yeah.
we submitted another design with the actual, that's just a conceptual,
Yeah.
Okay,
drawing, there is an
Okay.
Is
actual,
there, I'm sorry, is there, maybe there's this, is it this one?
yeah, that would be the actual.
okay. Well,
That's
you
it?
have a fire
That's
pit.
the actual.
There will be a fire pit, towards the pond, out, past the walkway, approximately 30, 40 feet from the pavilion, but no, there will be no fire and stuff.
The fire pit.
Will there be grills for outdoor grilling or anything like that at this point?
No,
Not
at this point.
Okay. Do you plan on adding them at a later date?
If there's, if the community just, you know, shows interest in it, we might, but at this point, we could not.
Now, we have several at Lake Louise. If they were to add them, is that something they need to seek? I don't know if it's a Bridie or Dave question. Do they need to seek approval to have a fire? I mean, because it's like putting one in your backyard.
So we don't need to have the fire prevention officer drop by to, I don't know, look at them so it doesn't burn the pavilion down or something like that?
Yeah, there's gonna be no, I mean, the fire pit will be put in now either. The fire pit's a future project once we get one saved up.
Okay.
And it'll be definitely far enough away that it'll be, hopefully, burned out.
But we would certainly seek approval or permits as needed for any additional fixtures, permanent fixtures like a fire pit. Again, this is our first step in the project as far as any structures. We're trying to keep things pretty low cost, pretty simple to maintain.
Mhm.
So things like grills or whatever, that just adds to the complexity for.
Do you have electricity running in the,
There will be electricity, yes. We have Pennington Electric online to do the work for us. The electricity at the building will be very simple and straightforward. A small NEMA 3R panel with a power light switch, 2 lights, and then 2 GFI protected receptacles at opposite holes at the end.
because people are gonna bring their crock pots.
Yeah,
You're gonna-
yeah, exactly. But again, a very minimal amount of,
Do you have swimming in your pond?
we do not.
Okay. And then I actually do have one question, sorry.
Sure.
Do you think you'll end up doing fireworks at any time? 'Cause, I mean, that's a separate code you have to do with it, because I know when we do it, we go through that. But I didn't know.
Not authorized, and I'm not happy with my neighbors that do it illegally every year.
No, I have dogs, I agree. Yeah, we do it legally, I put them in the basement, I know when it's.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
We do not encourage that.
okay. Any other questions? Is there anyone here? Sorry.
When the village built the pavilion, we were concerned about a gathering place for teenagers with vandalism. We haven't had that. I don't see that being an issue with your place either. I think it could, but I'm sure you have ways of handling it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you plan on,
The neighbors, they can see the pavilion from the back of their
Okay.
house. And, there's teenagers at night doing shenanigans.
Mhm.
We'll find out about
Are you gonna have a porta back there?
it. Excuse me.
Will you have a porta potty back there?
No plans on that. I mean, if there's maybe a major,
Bring it in for them.
we've got plans on it.
Lights,
Yeah.
did I miss something? Will it be lit at night?
There will be, we have considered putting in a timer for low-level security lighting, the 2 lights that would be up in the eaves.
Mhm.
Right now, the thought is that might be more of an annoyance to the 2 neighbors. So we're going to just go with a basic switch for now. And if it does become a security issue and we get agreement from the neighbors, then we would probably have it changed out to photo eye for dusk to dawn or something like that.
Okay.
But that's a pretty quiet area back there. It's pretty difficult to get to from the north. And yeah, it's just neighbors that use it.
so there's no vehicle access built, like a driveway kind of thing at this point?
There is an easement that is owned by the HOA that goes between 118 and
Do you want me to go? Sorry.
117. Yeah, if you can go back to a plot maybe.
Probably the first one.
Try site 1 or site 2, down towards the bottom.
No.
There we go, right there.
Okay.
You can see there is an easement that goes from the cul-de-sac back up into, near the pond.
Okay.
That is currently gravel based with grass growing over it. It's been there for, well, since the 70s when the place was built.
Okay.
It's fenced off, it's got a small gate. We do not allow vehicle traffic unless it's part of the construction process.
So it's not easy to drive up and the kids pile out and,
Yeah. They have
Okay.
to park in the cul-de-sac on the paved area.
And while it's wide, it's fairly close, if it's what I said, to
Mhm.
128, 126.
Mhm.
I don't, it would be like walking into your backyard.
okay.
No. Okay. Do you have a motion? I move that we approve the applicant's request to have the HOA construction of the 40 by 20 by 12 pavilion on plotted common property at 128 Countryside.
I second.
Ruth?
Elisa Budak.
Yes.
Mark Porter.
Yes.
Phyllis Marino.
Yes.
William Coontz.
Yes.
Greg Brown.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Ladies and
Congratulations.
gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thank you for coming.
Thank you for putting us on the agenda.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So I'm sorry, there wasn't anyone from the public who wanted to talk about it, I'm thinking. My apologies. Okay. Now, our next item agenda, PC case number 25-04. Mr. Dustin Kaplan is the applicant and owner of Ortho Sports HQ LLC, is seeking approval to operate a physical therapy and fitness business at the property located at 576 Industrial Parkway, owned by Mark Dairy. Mr. Kaplan?
Good evening.
And are you Dr. Yoder?
Yeah.
Okay, I checked that website. I recognized you. If you want to come up here, you're welcome to.
Okay.
Yeah. Please tell us. Oh, not all the way up, I mean, you can sit. Sorry, not. You can even sit if it's easier for you.
Yeah, that's fine. So my name is Dustin Kaplan. This is my business partner, Dr. James Yoder. We own Ortho Sport HQ, 576 Industrial Parkway. We started 5 years ago, kind of in the peak of COVID. Ever since then, I moved to South Russell. I live in Paw Paw Lake with my dog Pippin. Love it out here, and we're just trying to do good. We've been operating as Ortho Sport for 5 years, serving more than 1,400 patients, 400 plus of which come from South Russell. So it's like a third of our clientele come from South Russell, with outstanding reviews. I think we have more than 400 5-star reviews. We're all 5-star reviews. We try to do well in the communities, as far as being in the Stream Valley Chamber of Commerce, getting involved with schools as well, and doing numerous charities. So we are a physical therapy clinic, and we do some fitness, but our goal is doing sports physical therapy, but bridging the gap to get people into fitness classes because we can handle that much volume. So other than that, I prepared some documents for everybody here, kind of more information on what we do, some reviews, and some other issues that you may have questions about. Hopefully you're answered here. I didn't know we had the TVs, so I would have done a PowerPoint, but try to make it look fancy for everybody.
Sure. Go ahead.
Sorry, guys.
I just passed it down.
For everybody, it's here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How do clients come to you?
So we get referrals from doctors, word of mouth is probably 90% of our referrals, and we do injury screening events where we go out to other areas, fitness clubs, and we screen them for free and give them some recommendations and advice. And then if we feel appropriate that they should come see us, we recommend coming in for a discounted retail.
They don't need a prescription.
We do not deny.
Do you take healthcare insurance or you just?
Yeah, so we're kind of what we would call a hybrid clinic. We work with Medicare, and we work with all insurance on an out-of-network basis. So it just depends on the plan, but we have a pretty strong out-of-pocket component to our business too. we find that that allows us to provide the best care. So we've kind of changed our model a few times to try to, allow us to provide the best care, but also save people money and make it as cost effective as possible.
Do you deal mostly with athletes?
Active people, but we have a.
But yeah,
we're all-
when I say that, like recreational athletes, not
Yeah,
professional. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Like triathletes, marathoners, things like that.
High school, mix of high school athletes, but about 20% of our caseloads, Medicare patients. So, yeah, I think it's a good mix with the overall population.
So grandma could bring her high school grandson, and they both would be perfect for you.
Yeah, good husband and wives that come together, for sure.
Your location is in a high demand area, off the beaten path. Why'd you pick that location?
We were actually, we had a relationship with Mark that goes back years when I first kind of, me and Dustin knew each other from college, and he was kind of, had a personal training business, and he was an athletic trainer for years at Cleveland Medical Team. I started kind of doing this physical therapy thing as a side hustle, and I was coming out, and I met Mark. He had some space that came open around 2020, and we were around that time trying to kind of join together. And so he had space available back then, a small area that we were kind of coming out part-time and using 15, 20 hours a week. That's kind of how it started. So we were actually there before it got busy. So, and it's become a little bit more popular, I think, because, it's close to the village. There's a lot of, you got Shriyan Yoga, a number of kind of wellness, fitness, medical businesses back there. So it's also a little bit more affordable than the storefront in the area for a new business. So I would say that those would be the reasons.
When you, Chalk It Up was there, would you take the young, mostly girls, would you take somebody that young with an injury, gymnastics
So
injury?
pediatric physical therapies, it's kind of a specialization. It depends what's wrong. We don't have a lot of patients that are under the age of 12. We've seen a handful, but it's not but certainly middle school and high school. Yeah.
One of the big issues always is parking. And we have heard of and seen how the businesses back there are affected by parking. So how many parking spaces do you have assigned to you by the landlord?
So I put up signs, I think we have 5 signs or 6 signs in front there. So really, we utilize that area at our peak times. Some people park further down. Usually, Living Lane doesn't have too many classes in the afternoon, if they even have like maybe 1. So after 8 o'clock, as you can see in the graph I put on there, the parking is wide open. And what we do is we stagger our therapists, so not everybody starts at the same time. So we're not seeing peak patients, I would say, only until like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock are our highest volume times.
Okay.
So I think the parking lot, about 80% of the time is like a third full. There is, Living Lane operates in the morning hours, like mostly, I think about 6 o'clock to 9:30, 10 a.m. They do 90% of their business in the morning, okay? We really start seeing patients 6, 7 o'clock. Our full staff typically gets there at 8 or 9. So the only time, I'd say 2 or 3 days a week, 7, 8, 9 a.m., the parking lot's busier. It's at worst been like minor inconvenience for us. We very rarely, maybe I can count on one hand the amount of times a patient in the 5 years we've been operating hasn't been able to find a place to park. And we've discussed with Mark about adding lines and doing some, fixing up the potholes and things like that. But that would really be our only, the only thing that I see that's an issue.
So you have 5 assigned, or 6 assigned spaces. The 2 of you are there to open up and get things started going.
We kind of stagger.
We have, he didn't say like, hey, you only get 6 spots or 5 spots. He said, hey, put some parking signs up, for numerous reasons, and so I just put them up. It wasn't like it was an issue at all. We probably could have had more if I asked more. We just didn't want.
Our staff parks in the back.
So the spots are for your patients?
Yeah,
Yes.
our staff parks in the back. If in the afternoon, typically what we've told them, and as we've tried to be good neighbors, as some of these issues have come to our attention, over the last few months, we've had our staff park in the back in the morning. In the afternoon, like I said, there's no one there. So they'll typically just park wherever because there's 30 spots open.
Okay.
And really, the reason why we had the signs wasn't because of parking capacity, it was more so for our Medicare patients. It wasn't really nothing to do with parking capacity.
And all of your patients come on scheduled appointment times, or is it a drop-in?
It's definitely not a drop in.
Scheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my only request would be just make sure they know where to park when they come, when you talk to them.
So we have the email we send out to new patients, and we also have a sign. It definitely can be confusing as you drive in there, especially if you're a new patient. But, after the first visit, with all the information we provide them, they should definitely be able to park in their spots.
We've had, I think there's times when the first time somebody comes, they're a little bit confused, but I think as we've added more signage or more signage back there and things in the initial email and things that they get, that's become far less frequent problem.
So the best of your knowledge, have you lost any patients specifically because of the parking issue?
No.
You get a lot of walking wounded, people that need to park near the door.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think we get too many of those type of patients. The only concern I would say is the reason why we have the parking signs would be because of the winter time being slippery. We even occasionally walk patients out to their car if we think it's bad. We snow plow the rails and or the sidewalk, the old sidewalk, our entryway. So that's the only reason, that's the biggest, probably the reason why we have those signs.
Yeah, very, rare that, somebody that's unable to walk more than, 20 steps into the building, 30 steps into the building.
So are any of these people on crutches or wheelchairs or walkers?
Wheelchairs very rarely, just from a physical therapy standpoint, we don't see many, if patients have significant neurological issues, like post-stroke or things like that. We typically send them somewhere else, because we're just not built for that type of patient. Sometimes we'll get patients, that just have an ankle sprain the day before, or we maybe have a handful of folks, Medicare patients that are on a walker.
Okay.
But it's, less than probably 3% of our caseload, I would say. And because if it was, we would lose patients, right? If it had become an issue. So if the parking was we just, we extended a 1-year lease at the beginning of this year. And if the parking would have been a major issue for us, we wouldn't have extended, we want to keep growing within the community. So.
Do you see your parking needs going up in the next year or two?
I don't think so, because we're kind of at capacity in the space that we have as far as like how many patients we can see with the therapists we have there. You know, the only scenario would be if we expanded within the space, but then there would be a business that wasn't there anymore that would be leaving. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Mr. Derry may have an input on that, I
he
suppose.
would, yeah, of course. That would be us, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we could potentially see more patients in the afternoon, but like, we don't have the capacity to see more than the therapists that we have. We have 9 employees, 7 are providers, 2 are office staff.
Right.
And we're 2 of the providers, and neither one of us sees a full-time caseload. And then we have another employee that's part-time as well.
How often how many of your staff are all there at one time and how often? Like, what's the largest number of staff that's there at one time?
I actually have a graph on.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned I like detail, so what page am I
I'm a
looking at?
dad there. Let me see how the time for.
Page 6.
Is that before, I told page 6, is before parking, okay.
You can see on average, we providers we have.
Got it.
The zeros you see there yellow is me. Sometimes I won't work every single, 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, 7 Wednesday morning. So
So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's at 9 AM is like your peak.
So you see the most we have are 6 providers. That's
Got it.
because that's our busiest time, probably the easiest time to get those patients in there. Yes.
So the patients would park up front and you and your employees park in the back?
Yeah.
Do you have any handshake agreements with some of your neighbors? Like, at 9 in the morning, I don't know if Hawaiian guy is there. Can you use some of those spots and vice versa with,
We don't have an agreement with them. We don't really
Try.
with living room or anything? Yeah.
Yeah, so, there's times where like patients that have never been there before, or like they're in a hurry, or, like they're running late and they'll just park like further away. And I think, that's the only issue I think, from that perspective, but,
Yeah.
with our communication with Mark to try to minimize that happening, that's when we kind of said, hey, we're gonna have our staff park in the back, keep as many spots open in the front so people don't have to walk as far. So his gym members in the morning don't have to walk as far, so.
All right, going to open it up to the public. I'm assuming that you're here. Okay. Liz.
So I'm a patient of theirs. I saw them 9 times and still doing their exercises there, so that's fine. And I've chit-chatted with Dr. Yoder quite a bit on these things. And I'm here just for my planning commission to know that I want to make sure that 477, that the building, and I represent that, we're not getting overflow parking. I've talked with Dr. Yoder, he's been trying, these comments that you have made about sending us emails, and I think some inspired by me, or those conversations that did that. But I understand that your patients won't complain, but they do, if there's a difficult parking, they will park in my spots, in the front spots. And that's not a far distance to go, to which they would have to be discouraged to go to orthosport. So that's, but you guys, unfortunately, there's no reason from your perspective, can't see if those people park in our spots or not, and it's not a big distance to complain. But that will interfere with that business traffic in 576 can overflow, and you still get people, 2 weeks ago, somebody came in, we had an event on Thursday evening, and they parked in 477 and walked across us to your guys, which is the way it happens. So I just want to make the planning commission know that when people when they're going around in this traffic area, that there's not a lot of open spaces further down don't necessarily encourage people to park there. But if I have open spaces in the front, it just makes sense for people to park in their spots. So I'm here just to let the planning commission, because we're all trying to grow businesses and I'm trying to grow into it. And that's when I'm here to advocate for my patients. And it's not helpful for them if they have to park in my parking spots. So it isn't helpful if eventually, if I get busy enough and you guys have to park into our parking spots to get to your place. That's not helpful for your patients either, but I'm here just to let the planning commission know that.
So non-customers that park in your spots, they do that despite your signage?
We don't have any signs. Yeah, there's no sign in our, there's nothing in our building. Our building owner doesn't put signage that says exclusively 477. I mean, our parking spots are right in front of the building that clearly should imply that these parking spots are for this building.
Mm-hmm.
But if circumstances happen that there's sufficient parking, people will park in our spots and then just head over to the vaccine system. So that's happening. And
Can you put signs up if you wanted to, or your landlord won't allow it?
our owner will not allow us to do it. So
But you guys have signs up?
we do.
Mr. Derry lets them do that.
Yeah, they got it right now.
Yeah, so they do have it, but again, if they're filled up or something, people tend not to go down, tend not to go all the way down, though they can park in our spot. So that's just the traffic business here.
But your spot, the spots that you have signed are right at the front. And your door is far enough down. I mean, if they go beyond those signs, it's only a couple of feet. In fact, it's closer beyond the signs than it is to come all the way back out to park in front of the other building. So I don't see how that could happen very often. I mean, they'd have to back out and turn around. And does it happen very often?
Well, I mean, it's enough that I'm here. How about that? It's enough because it's good. Again, so that's just what I'm saying. It's enough that I'm here.
But it's kind of, I was quite alarmed after the video. And so I made a number of trips over to the building this week. In fact, I went 6.
Excuse me, I don't know if you're aware, the Truax has sent a video to the planning commission. If you saw it, it was a specific day. It was after you were at zoning, where it was a very crowded morning.
Right.
That day.
Right.
So this week, I made actually 7 different trips over at different times during the day to observe the parking situation. So I was there at 8:30 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 9:25, 11:25, 3:25 in the afternoon, and 4:35 in the afternoon, try and get a sample. And there were, during none of those sample times, was there any kind of a parking problem. There were always spaces vacant in front of your building, and you're a minimum of 1, but more often 2 or more. And there were always spaces along the drive and spaces in the back of 576. So I found it interesting that there was the one video kerfuffle. And yet this week, going 3 different days, 7 different times, there really weren't, there was no apparent need for a whole lot of dialogue about this.
Dr. Triggs, what time of day and what day of the week was that video done? Do you
That was
know?
that was a Friday.
Okay.
So the Friday, and so that was one. But again, this isn't the first time. That video was just one thing we want to show. We just wanted the planning commission know that we somebody yesterday from the aluminum company who was, I'll only say, so you can say that, and yeah, there are times when things are open and there are plenty of opportunities, so there are things, but because you didn't see that doesn't mean that.
No, I was just trying to take a sample and,
Yeah.
and having been there, yeah, during the peak hours in the morning, 3 times, actually, I was there
What day of
most.
the week were you there?
I did these, I don't remember which
So maybe
days I did
days.
which, but
It wasn't every day.
it wasn't every
It wasn't,
day.
and it
for-
wasn't one day.
No, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today. So
Yes,
today,
okay.
for instance, I did the early morning.
Got it.
I don't remember which days I did the noon hour and the afternoons, but there were 2 different days. So I was just trying to take just a,
You have 5 minutes if you would like to.
Well, that video was
Or any other.
at the 9:30 hour,
Okay.
the busiest hour, it was a one-off. I just told Dave, please, I'm asking you to, just like you did today, you come down any day of the week,
Mhm.
anytime of day, and you'll see it's really not a problem. There are days like that. That was an exceptional day. That was pretty crowded. And I'm not saying there are not going to be more days like that, but 97% of the time, pretty free and clear.
I went back there
I-
Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was
There was another gentleman in town when I was here last time. I saw him in the parking lot. He sees me out there at 8:30, guiding cars to make sure they don't park too far away from each other, make sure they park right next to each other, starting in this line. What usually happens is, until recently, people park just right in the middle. And say you can get 6 cars in between the next car, well, now you can only get 4.
Right.
So I have to stand out there and direct traffic. Now it's pretty copacetic, everyone understands what they need to do after the planning commission, so it's run pretty smoothly so far.
Could I suggest,
Please.
we are here to approve or disapprove a business that frankly has been there for 5 years.
Right.
Maybe we knock that off.
In fact, I had asked Friday, because I think the
And-
parking
yeah.
situation's a new business
Okay,
item too.
we could handle that.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a question for Dr. Chicks and then for the other 2 doctors. Do you have any indication why the landlord, your landlord, won't permit signage in front of your business?
That's, they've never communicated necessarily one way or the other, they just say there's no assigned parking. That's all they do.
Do we have any input on that, Dave?
The only thing we've got is with the fire engines, no parking, and the handicap, that's federal.
Who owns, he owns the land too, because I'm thinking spray painting on the ground as opposed to a sign.
I mean, is it just me or is that the obvious solution? I mean, you guys have your signage out because your landlord permits it,
And in the winter it won't be
and
as
it's
hot.
for
as-
yours,
it's a
right? It
solution.
says.
When
Seems-
when Dr. Truex and I spoke, that's what we always come to, is I think 99% of the issues.
Mr. Geary, do you have a good relationship?
Hold it. Travis,
What?
Dr. Truex.
that doctor was speaking.
I was just gonna say, I don't see how there would be any issue if there was signs that said Shamir Osteopathic, because I think most of the time a handful of times that a patient has parked over there, it's just because they think it's just part of the building, it's their first time back there. They should know, because it's right in front of the building, but everything is kind of jammed closer together back there, so I could see a scenario where somebody's in a hurry, or, but if they had signs there, I don't think they would ever park there, so.
I mean, that seems like an obvious solution to me, to your issue, but, I mean, if,
We're struggling with that too,
yeah,
so, I'm at a loss.
We are going to continue discussing the parking. However,
well, we're
thank you
not,
for coming.
I did have one other question.
Please.
You guys have been there 5 years, and now you're applying?
Yes.
How did this happen?
Like I said earlier, during COVID, being new business, young business owners, starting this as like a side business, seeing it growing. To be honest, we had no idea this was even a thing. And so when we first found out, I guess, a blessing in disguise that there was some issues with parking, then first thing we did was come over here and reply.
Okay,
So, as soon as we found out, we came here.
okay.
We were pretty clueless, when we started, but didn't know we needed to, do this, so we apologize for that.
Has the fire protection officer been to their
I
facility?
believe he was. And that's one of the conditions, if you so grant this business, that my occupancy and fire inspector will make an inspection on it.
Okay. I mean, that's our major concern is the occupancy and the fire protection for any of these businesses that move in, because we don't want to have a situation where your business burns and your patients are inside and there's a reason for that, like the doors don't open right, something of that nature.
For sure.
We're fortunate that that didn't happen in the 5 years you've been operating. We'd like to make sure it doesn't ever happen for any business. Mr. Derry?
Fire protection guy comes, I think once a year, twice a year, once a year, but he does the whole building.
He is also.
He's been there.
So he's been there for the past 5 years.
Okay.
We put all the fire extinguishers in where he wanted them, so he comes once a year, disapproves it, tells us to get the new one. So our place is right next to theirs, through a sliding door, it's not even a closed door.
Okay.
So he just lost the whole building upstairs on both ends and approves it. So that's kind of the responsibility that I took it for the building, because I didn't know they had to do that, but I just do it. So
Okay.
they've been there, I don't think they did it this year. Yeah. But every other year.
You are not the first business to apply after the fact. Might be one of the longest, 5 years we joined first, and we appreciate that, but we still want you to come forward because it is a process. We need to make sure these things are done. And also, anyone else moving into the building, I think will now know they have to come before planning commission first, so I think Mr. Derry's got that one. So, do we have any other questions regarding this? Okay.
I think we need a motion.
Mark's got it?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as submitted by OrthoSport HQ and retroactively to the date they started off. So moved.
I second.
Elisa Budoff,
Yes.
Mark Porter,
Yes.
Phyllis Marino,
Yes.
William Coons,
Yes.
Greg Broom.
Yes.
Welcome officially to the village. Okay, we are, technically, this is where I would say you can go, but the one thing I want to make clear, because the Truaxes did send us a few letters, and one of the things that they asked, and I want to make sure that you're aware of it, please make sure your clients know to do the best they can to not park outside of where your address is. You know, they don't have to use your assigned spots because they're maybe full, but I'm sure there'll be other ones there. Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah.
We'd like to see both of your businesses grow.
Yes, we want it.
I anticipate it growing, so I'm just
Well, you have added to their client list, right?
Pardon?
You've added yourself to their client list?
Yeah, that's great.
So it's, but I need parking space.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Now, I want to ask you,
Are they?
do I need to make a motion to continue your business?
No.
Okay.
Where was it? You go to old business.
Oh,
I think we had it.
do we have any old business?
Yeah, one thing,
Okay.
just question, this is wonderful,
Yes.
but it hits us too late. How can we get stuff like this ahead of time?
Yes.
Well, the applicant provided it
Yeah.
tonight.
Does today.
Did you print it out today or something?
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, just in the procedure, I don't know how we do that, but it'd be nice to.
Well, ideally, everything should be in by the cutoff date, but I should have let you know that if you wanted to submit anything else at all that you wanted the board to review before the meeting, I'd be happy. I would have emailed them everything and I would have shown it.
We appreciate it, but we don't want to be reading this while we're listening
Right.
to you, if possible.
Thank you.
We'll take it home and read it. Very nice presentation.
Take a break for a second and then we'll go on. Mr. Derry, I do want to thank you for coming. I'm glad you're here. I want to be able to address the parking questions. Do we have here?
Are they free to go? Was that? I don't know if that's-
Well, it's like,
I don't remember.
The biggest request that I saw was please make sure they know, and I wanted to honor that. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to stay. If you'd like to go, I asked that Mr. Gary stay for just a little bit so we can continue with that, but it's entirely up to you if you'd like to stay.
So your application is approved, and now we're going to talk about parking overall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to hear about parking overall, you're welcome to stay, otherwise.
Okay, so in the new business, we have the situation with the parking.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Dr. Truex, the same thing that I'd asked them. At any point, have you lost a patient or had a patient complain significantly because they were unable to access your
With that
service?
patient's complaint, we haven't lost anybody.
Okay,
I don't want it.
Okay.
And so at that point, it's early.
Mhm.
I want to be here for 4 years. I want to be here for 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't want it to become such a problem where then you say, oh, now I drove in there and I see the problem. I don't want it to do that. So that's just what
How many people do you usually have staff-wise on site?
it's myself and my wife, just my wife. So
Okay.
and that hasn't changed, because I did have the minutes in your application from
And,
Katie.
and,
so
but we do have the opportunity to grow and expand and we
Right.
have
I understand.
to do it, so we do have the goal for them to grow, so we need to grow into our parking spaces.
Right.
And we do also have, a growing CrossFit, plus we have Suite C that's growing this direction. And so then we get over, so to see, then we get the start. So that's, I'm planning 5 years from now.
Right, I appreciate that, and that's the right thing to do. So if there's just two of you, it's highly unlikely you would need more than 3 or 4 spaces. Wait, let me finish for patients.
At the moment.
At a time. Well, if there's 2 of you, each one of you is seeing a patient. All right, and let's assume that a patient comes while the prior patient is still there half the time, or even full time, every time. Okay, that you're constantly back to back. You shouldn't, it would seem, need more than 4 spaces in front to accommodate patient needs. Is that a fair observation?
But I also have another business specialist that's also using spaces too, because there's another business, Suite B. So, so it's not, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only.
Which business is that?
Next year.
Next to us, Suite B, 42, so there's the 4.
There's also space available for lease in the building.
Suite C,
Okay.
and then there's CrossFit
So
Suite B.
there should be, I drove by their building more to see, but if there's an available space, there should be more than enough parking in the lot. I know you're gonna have a problem with CrossFit, having a lot of people, but there should be extra spots that Suite C would be able to take.
Well,
Can we, let me try and finish.
well, and to answer your question, we would, again, well, I'm trying to answer your question. My wife and I take up 2 spots. But then every patient that I see, that I need somebody to come in, like if I see a patient in a half hour. So I would be 3, so it'd be my spot plus 2 patients coming in, so that's 3.
Well, I'm going to ask a question then. The good doctors here have their staff parked in the back of the building, and I presume you do as well. I mean, could you and your wife not park at least on the side of your building? I mean, there's plenty of space.
So we park on the side of the building.
Okay, so that leaves, there are 7 spaces out front, correct?
Okay.
So what traffic does the other business generate? Is there another business in the front?
Yeah,
There's 2 in the front. Are you on the right or the left?
I'm on.
When you're looking at the building.
I'm looking at the one on the left.
You're the one on the left.
We'll see up to 4 clients at a time.
Okay, all right, okay.
So he's 5.
All right.
So looking at the building, you're on the left.
Yes.
And do you view the spots just in front of your storefront, your frontage as your spots?
No, it's 477 spot.
Okay,
And it's most obvious that it would be, because the activity, business activity for C and D would be back there. It seems I mean, anybody can park there.
Right.
Because their parking signs would say 477 only parking, not Ortho Sport parking. I mean, I don't know what it would say. Maybe the owner would be allowed to be business specific, but there's Suite A and Suite B, those of us would be sharing
The 7, so to speak.
those parking spots. And
In your Suite A.
in the Suite A, plus we should be a personal service, because we're also do exercises. So we can have so we each should have up to about 10 parking spots, each.
Yeah.
So, and so that's.
Does your landlord not allow that for you?
Well, we're struggling with that. We're struggling with that.
So what does the other group generate in terms of parking demand in Suite B?
Suite B?
Well, the other one that's next to you.
Yeah.
Would you, I get
He can see
confused.
up to 4 people at an hour, and then he comes and goes, he has stuff, he has morning hours, some days he has midday, and sometimes the after. I mean, I guess, I understand.
I'm just, it just doesn't seem that there is such an overwhelming demand that it can't be handled by having staff park on the side and allow.
We do, I mean.
But, and
So who's parking in your spots?
Yeah.
You have 4, there's 7 spots out
I mean,
front.
most of it, I guess the problem is, there are times where, and there are many times where there is no parking spot, but there are times where sometimes that business activity from 526 does bleed over into ours.
Is it 526 or is it CrossFit?
The CrossFit stays within 477, I mean, the CrossFit issue is sort of separate, it's not, this is their parking spot too. So, there's parking spots in the back that seem to be most prudent for CrossFit, I thought so, but again, that's.
Have there ever been more than one car from Mr. Derry's property parked there that you're at the same time?
Yes, there has been ever, yes. And-
How many at most?
I mean, there's sometimes 2, sometimes we have to, but we also then have to go out and ask that person to please move,
Yeah.
which then hurts our reputation. And so,
We saw it on video.
and so,
But they were part, and see, that's where my question is, because the car that was asked to move, I know everyone can park there, but they were parked in front of Suite B in the video.
Right.
Because she almost took out the
She
grass, was
drove
pulled
on the
out.
grass.
Yeah, that's how I realized that. That's why.
and there was one, I mean, that particular day, Suite B, and then there's the one patient who didn't take kindly to us, was right in front of us. So we had to park out, so we had to go ask them. So, but I guess, doesn't matter how empty our parking spots are, if there's insufficient parking sometime at 576 and it comes over to us, does the lack of, I mean, you're right, there shouldn't be, if there's sufficient parking at 576, there should never be, I shouldn't be here. I guess that's the problem, if there's sufficient parking at 576.
If you had raised your hand about 10 minutes ago, Mr. Derry, did you want to share something? I have a question for you.
Sure.
So in the video, I slowed it down to like 0.2, so I could, because at the very beginning, she panned it really fast, so I slowed it down. I counted, including the truck, a total of 37 vehicles, which I've learned spots and vehicles are not necessarily the same thing. Yes, I mean, yeah. There were 21 along the side, and there were none in front of Hawaiian Guy. But then in the back, you had a little bit of an issue there with some
You couldn't tell them to park in the back.
great, they're like 3 deep. And I've asked questions about that. That is a fire hazard, but that's not something that comes before planning or zoning. That would be something to contact the police or the fire department if that was a concern. And it would be, for the jam that was back there, that's your problem.
Yeah.
If that part back there does not affect your business, we appreciate you sharing the video with us to see that, but that's more Mr. Derry's issue. Is 37 probably the most, like, that was like our busiest we would see?
If there were 37 cars,
Yeah.
I didn't count, but
Yeah.
if that was the day that the Friday at 9:30.
Mhm.
I remember that
Right.
day, because I went out there too. 37 is,
Okay.
how many spots do we have, Dave? I heard 36?
You have 33. I watched the zoning meeting like 7
I didn't know
times
if it was
this week.
33 or 36, but yes. So, in the back, and in the morning, that 9 to 9:30 hour, our class starts at 8:30. The Hawaiian guys, I like to leave their spaces for them also. They have 2 cars and a wood delivery guy who comes all the time.
Yeah.
Plus they kind of park their truck up there too sometimes. When
Okay.
we're doing that. So we'll pull the car from the truck from the back, they'll back it up to the front so that they're loaded, obviously way faster and easier. So I like to leave those for them, so I tell our folks to kind of park up there too. But in the back, it was kind of a cluster that day, but, you know, again, like I said, that's my problem, I'm trying to rectify it.
Right.
By going down the
So the weather's breaking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna paint stripes soon.
Yes.
And what needs to be done? Do they just get paint out or does it have to be resurfaced?
It has to be impervious surface, and he had agreed to paint the stripes where it designated parking areas.
Okay.
So I sent him a letter, I think by the end of May.
Yeah.
By the end of May, he's gonna have it done.
Yeah, it's the weather.
So 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay,
Only for the weather,
sure. I mean, if it ever stops raining,
yeah.
Well, this is not snow.
so
Then
true.
we get a quote to resurface the lot too.
Okay, no, sorry.
And I-
Now,
like,
you're gonna regret a comment you made.
It's like us.
You're gonna regret a comment you made at the end of the zoning, because you're like, you said I'm probably shooting myself in the foot. And I'm just asking this, but they said because the variance approved 33, which was less than what was normally required, you would ask, what if I wanted to add more spots? You didn't have to go back. And I love the fact that you want to save the trees. But the reason I was asking 37 within that, is there room back there to extend it onto the grass, kind of spread it out without taking out trees so that maybe you could get to 38?
That depends on the setbacks.
Okay.
I think it's 25 feet. We're really close to 25 feet, really close, maybe about 5 feet, to the edge where the playground of St. John's.
Yeah, on the side, no, I meant behind, like, so when I was looking at the video, the cars were parked this way, but in where the food truck was.
Yeah, so behind the.
That way, like if you could just push it back just a little bit more.
I got a quote on it also.
Yeah.
I come out, back there, I don't know if you got a car at all when you went down there.
Slow.
Like after the last row of cars by the garbage can, it's a
Okay.
little ravine. It's doable,
Okay.
but it's very expensive, the kind of money that I don't have.
I would see just how
Plus, it's
many
doable, yeah,
stripes
we
you can
have
get in.
plenty of room technically on our property to do
Right.
this. That's why I got the quote. I would like to do that, if I had all the money in the world, I'd do it small, because this is an issue. But it's still in the works, a couple business things have to happen for me to be able to do that, but it's very possible. And from what the guy said, it's like, you need 65 feet from here, this is a lot, cars are parking like this and like this, you need 65 feet, I thought that was kind of a lot.
Right.
But just for them to back up and, so it's not gonna be a ton of spaces that we can get in, he said maybe 15 or so, with all that room, I was kind of surprised. But I personally think we need more. If we had the funds to do it. So.
Okay. So you're working on your parking.
Yeah. I hope to have it resurfaced this year at least resurfaced.
But can you get the lines down sooner?
Yes.
You have to have the lines down by the end of May. Is that
Yeah.
what I understand?
So that's why I thought today, like, say we're getting it resurfaced in June. Can I wait till June to do the lines? If not, fine, I'll walk in myself.
We could do chalk lines or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and it's fine, I don't think it's a big deal, take a small road or do it myself, but, just a double work.
And has a parking plan been submitted from Dr. Truax's building? Were they required to submit a parking thing or just Mr. Truax's?
No, they have an approved parking plan by the planning commission.
They do, and
Yes.
do they need to stripe as well? or
Yes,
is it-
paved and striped,
And
And has that been done?
same as weather permit.
And they have the same, they're under the same,
We have been told nothing from our owner, so I've been told weather permits,
okay.
the weather's been permitting, And we have heard nothing about planning from our owner, so I can't plan to halt my clinic and other stuff. But, so I guess is the village going to remind my owner?
I had talked to him yesterday. He's on the same page. He's getting quotes right now.
What?
He's getting quotes for it right now.
Does he have a hard deadline, like the end of May?
Yeah, that's what I'm sure, man, that's what I thought.
Is that-
Normally I gave him the same time, you know?
Yeah.
And I work with these gentlemen a little bit, but I still gotta see some progress.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that because he told me in October it would be 2 years. And so if he knew way back in October, this was needed. And now he's looking for quotes, so I'm just wondering, when will that,
Well, I think with those situations, they were waiting for the weather to break, because in October, I don't know if I would be looking for paving quotes, because we're going into winter and nothing is the same after January. We've had a change in administration, costs are changing, I mean, there's a lot of variables, so in this area, I'm not surprised he was waiting until spring to get quotes.
Typically, the asphalt plants don't open until what, April?
Yeah.
Normally, and that's weather dependent too, and that's when the pricing comes out, because when we build, do our road program, that's one of the variables we deal with.
I'm happy to hear that that's there, and that will have an indirect impact on this conversation.
Okay.
So that's it.
Okay.
2 seconds. Thank you for this information you're providing us. It's kind of an unpleasant topic, but it's nice to have. It's nice to have the video. Again, a not pleasant topic.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't here.
I'm trying to think what we should do if we should say August 1st, we should look at this, or by then that would give everybody time to do anything that wants to be done down there.
See if the parking is then
Yeah,
remedied.
maybe.
Well, our presumption is that the striping will help,
Yes.
right? So people know where to park and how to park and.
Paving, yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, I guess maybe just a paving that makes it attractive for people to drive down 526.
Right.
That situation.
Can I ask a question? Can you, I know there's no signage allowed from your landlord, but can you put up cones? I don't know.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something when we've inquired with our owner, say, can you signs? We get silence. We don't even get a email that says, no, you can't do this. It's just nothing. There it is.
Okay.
And so, this is good. And it's
Well, the cones might work, I suppose. I mean, it works for football Saturdays in Columbus, right? People just put cones out, nobody touches them for some reason.
Just a point clarification. You know, I know Mark and I both would like to talk to you about this, but we're sitting on the planning commission, so we cannot just walk over and talk to you. I mean, so we're our hands are kind of tied. Everybody up here, their hands are kind of tied. But let's, we'll just remember, maybe in August, we'll take a look.
Okay.
that's a good idea.
That'll be all right with everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a couple of
And
months
the
of
only
use.
thing from the letters that I did want to clarify, because we had that, the letter, it said that you felt the planning commission misrepresented your business by determining your medical versus service. And I went through and looked at the minutes, I mean, we didn't really just define it one way or the other.
okay.
But on your, this is a copy of your application. On here, it says, you provide a description of existing property use, i.e. residential or commercial. Then it says, provide a description of the proposed use of property, and you voluntarily wrote medical office.
Correct.
Ruth, it's on,
It's page 2, medical clinic.
yeah.
Medical
it's-
clinic.
It's right there.
And
Yeah, one more page.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it said it right here.
Oh, yeah, you wrote it several places, you wrote it there too.
And
So-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you wrote, but it,
Oh, I see.
yeah, and then there.
Twice.
Yeah, I saw that, that's right, it was written down 3 times on there, that was medical clinic, so I just wanted to make sure that, this body didn't give you the impression we misrepresented you by calling you medical, because if you thought that was the case, it was only because I believe we saw it written.
I think we're just saying that because the code, I think, says that it has office space in South Russell, correct me wrong, and then there's personal services. There is no medical
No,
clinic.
there
So we're not an office. I mean, office, we're not people with pushers and computers. We're much more a personal service, not much different than them. And so that changes the parking spaces that South Russell
Yeah.
allows us. And that's what we're trying to say, is that the parking plan that was proposed and passed labeled us, and next door to us, as a medical clinic. And then reduces down to 7 parking spaces, because South Russell says office is, it said office space is 3 per 1,000 square feet, or just 2,000, so he says 7, but really, the personal service gets 5 office spaces, gets 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, so we should get 10, because we're a personal service. And so that's what we're trying to be clarified on.
And I understand, and because I remember the meeting when I looked, because Mark even asked, it was your first meeting
Was.
with us, and you asked, is parking a problem? And you quickly,
And when I said no, and I
you
got
said
the minutes.
yes,
At that point,
right,
I had no reason to
To
believe,
think it
because we
was.
thought,
yeah, and Ortho's board had already been there for.
Well, one
years.
person at a time, so the minutes are
Yeah,
clear.
sorry about that.
Doctor, please,
yeah, at
please
that point,
finish.
it was because we saw that to be the case. And then when we investigated, then when we started having some other challenges with locally, and then we started getting reover from 576, we started to look into this, and then it found out that 477 parking code wasn't sufficient for the total square footage. Is that correct? I mean, that's why they had to, and so there seems to be a chain of events that have
Yeah.
developed from
I
that
think-
first conversation.
We didn't approve parking spots at the meeting one way or the other. It wasn't discussed, like how many spots. It was just Mr. Porter asked, is there enough?
And there seems,
Hold on, she has the floor now.
Yeah, so, thank you, Mark. So where I'm going with all of this is, my biggest impression is that I believe it is a discussion to take place between tenant and landlord. Not through planning. We can't insist your landlord give you more parking spots because of a definition. The situation here, they all share their spots. A good example, we discussed, is just across the street here between Augie's and the Sleepy Rooster. They both get 40 spots. There's not 80 spots there. It's just the way they overlap, one finishes business at 2, the other one starts at 3. So it works. And I understand and appreciate your frustration. I just don't know I don't believe planning commission nor zoning is responsible for counting your parking spots that your landlord must give you.
okay, so,
And does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I agree.
I think that's right.
okay.
The signs out front, if the landlord would okay it, might solve your
Okay,
problem.
I'm glad, thank you for talking about this, I appreciate that. So if a business comes to the planning commission and says, I want a business and I want to be personal service, but the landlord says, no, I'm just gonna restrict you and say, call you an office and say, therefore, you only are allowed this many parking spaces per South Russell code. And then they bring in another business to say, hey, you're personal service, so we're gonna give you a lot more parking spaces. And so, I mean, I guess, the parking code that you guys have, that South Russell has, that medical, office gets 3 parking per 1,000 square feet and 5, is that something that's not a,
Brady, is that a planning commission concern or a zoning concern?
Both. It's both, because it's definitely, defined in our code, and it's exactly how we calculate our.
But the applicant business defines who they are, not their landlord, correct?
Correct.
Sure.
Yeah, I just, in the hypothetical, I don't know if that's, I know that hasn't ever presented since I've been here.
So, I mean, so we are a massage clinic and medical clinic, and you guys aren't defining this, we're much more along with personal service, which would mean that a blueprint should count us as 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. And so, so is that a concern by the planning commission if I'm clearly a personal service, but the owner of the building reduces me down and thus reduces me down for that space?
Well, I don't know that it's a matter of the owner reducing someone down, unless you are granted specific spaces under your lease. I'm just venturing this. Typically, a lease says you get to use the community parking, so to speak. Unless someone has designated spaces, in which case they would be marked, I'm assuming, and they would probably have tow-away and therefore make it possible to enforce it. I'm not even sure your signs are enforceable. I don't know. They're really guidance.
I've looked into that, and any towing would be at the personal expense. Like if they thought someone was there and the police wouldn't even get involved, you'd have to tow.
Yeah, and even then, I don't, well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But with most leases, parking isn't designated. It's
And
to the community.
our lease says no designated.
Right.
And so we know that. And so that's, so there's some internal working, there's some internal challenges we have with business owner and everything that may not be related to you guys. But so there's that, and I appreciate the conversation about it. What we've been wondering is if a business plan, because the blueprint says these are your seven to these 2 businesses in front, that could give a future owner who see, oh, look at all the parking spaces because the blueprint does designate, essentially says 7 parking spots for Suite B, 7 for Suite A, and then 22 for Suite C. So even though we're not designated, there's not designated parking, the owner has developed a parking plan for us, which assumes we'll only get. So that means that Suites D, C, and D can have theoretically expand into those parking spots. Because theoretically, isn't it supposed to be that the number of parking spots reflects the demand of business? And so it allows each business to grow into those 7 parking spots.
I think what you're asking us is, can planning commission force your landlord to give you a certain number of parking spots?
I'm just curious as to how those, I'm just curious as to how the code that's in the code, which then got translated onto our blueprint. Where does the village fall in on that? Because our blueprint calls us in office and gives us 7 spaces, which is using South Russell coding parking for that. So I'm just curious where they got that number from and what role South Russell has.
Did anyone else here watch the zoning meeting that Mr. Derry was on? Lindsay Self made a very good statement when Mr. Derry was there about the way the zoning code is set up. It's by square footage, and that it it's not always applicable, because like in a place like a gym, you might have 30. Well, I go like this. You may have you may have more yoga mats. You may have like, say you've got 15,000 square feet. You're not going to need 35 spots for just that. It's just you need more space. So I think it's a fungible.
Well, I understand it's fungible, but I'm just curious, yes, and so that's what we're sort of inquiring, where does that happen? If,
I would say zoning. Well, and us to determine, so we can't force the hand of the landlord.
Well, I mean, I can tell you what would happen. Let's say you come in with a business plan, you say we're personal services, but the landlord is only going to authorize us to have 3 spots. So what planning commission, correct me if I'm wrong, solicitor, would do is say, that doesn't comply with our code. Your application to open your business is denied. So the business owner leaves, can't open his business until he comes back again with essentially more parking spots. So when you opened your business in 22 or so,
Yeah.
you had adequate parking for your spot per your lease, because there weren't any assigned parking spots. And your application was approved. If you'd come in with 2 spots, my guess is the building inspector would have said that's not enough parking for this business, and your application would have been denied. So I don't think that's the situation that helps the new business owner, okay? Even if they come 5 years later, but nonetheless, that's how I think we would handle it. And that doesn't help really anyone, does it?
what, to,
Deny a new business owner application, and then they require them to go back, not require them, but their only option left is to go back to the landlord and say, hey, Mr. Derry, I need 3 more parking spots in order to open my business. And then I'm not sure what the answer would be, but that procedurally, that's how it would happen.
all right?
Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I will second the motion.
If we're going to take up parking in August and discuss, obviously, this situation would be Exhibit A. Would it be too much to ask that we have current site plans, current building diagrams denoting which tenant is where, and therefore we can develop a sense of what the requirements might be?
We do have those, so we have the approved plan from 477.
We do.
And then we
Okay.
also have Mr. Darius' plan that he just received the variance for. So we do have those plans, and we can
Okay.
present them in August, again, unless tenants change or whatever, but I mean, otherwise we have those plans.
So we have the parking plans, but I think what Greg's talking about,
It has the building.
and it shows the building too.
And it has.
And listing which tenant is where and et cetera, et cetera.
It's a nice map.
It does.
It would help, I think, in the discussion.
Be good to visualize it, yeah. Okay.
Okay, Bill.
Second.
Okay, you seconding and moved. Okay, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yes, so it's much about, getting a certificate of occupancy.
Thanks for reminding me.
Update.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Here you go. You're all set.
Thank you.
Village council.
Coincidentally.
According to these people.
Who are these people?
Was, now.
According to these people, they want to do something.
Good, how are you, Jim?
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Good luck.
Yeah, but that's an odd.
It's very, very nice.
I was
We're on the same page.